Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Please excuse the noise. We're in our driveway and I can't stop the neighbors from doing yard work, and honestly, why would I? Anyway, so we hooked up with Freedom Vango at the Southeast Overland Expo, and in talking to those guys, we realized that they had a showroom in the Jacksonville area, and we're in the Jacksonville, Florida area as well. So they're about 45 minutes from our house. So we decided to go down there and pick up a WeBoost Reach RV edition, and I'll talk about why we went with the RV edition here in a minute, but we decided to head down there, pick up the WeBoost and a couple other accessories we know that we would need for the install. So if you know us, we're not big on advocating for go out and get every piece of equipment you can possibly find in the catalogs and on the internet, but we decided to go with the WeBoost for a couple specific reasons. Since we typically travel alone, we wanted to have the ability to be able to call out in case of an emergency or just be able to reach out and contact somebody if we needed. We also wanted the ability to update our weather and check to see if there are any prescribed burns that are happening in the area around us, since we kind of hang out in the national and state forests quite a bit. So for those three reasons, we determined that the WeBoost was probably the best fit for us for right now. It's a little bit of a pricey item. It's a $500 item, and then we got a couple accessories to go with the install. So our bill ended up out the door at about $700. But like I said, we went down to Freedom Vango, we picked that up. If you're in the Jacksonville area, I highly recommend stopping in. They have an amazing showroom, and I'll drop some footage in right about now of the showroom itself, and super knowledgeable staff, and they went out of their way to make sure that we were taken care of and we had everything we needed for this install, even though we didn't have a van, and they're typically van people. So if you're interested in getting involved in the van life scene, definitely go check those guys out. Fantastic business, great owner, great staff. I couldn't recommend them more. So what we're going to use to install this on the bed rack of the Jeep is we're going to use a Rhino rack swivel. It's an antenna swivel. It's a little bit pricey, but man, this thing is nice. It's super beefy. It allows you to mount the antenna up and then fold it over when you're not using. It folds over both directions. And there's a bunch of different positions you can put it in, so however you need to set it up, it's probably going to work out great for you. So we're going to use this to mount the antenna on top. We also purchased the additional DC to DC connector. This one comes with an AC style house plug that we're a little concerned about using in the Jeep, because we don't want to suck up all our plugs inside the Jeep. So we can't charge a jackery or any of other electronics as we're moving. So we opted for the DC to DC connection. It's got a USB port built right into it, so you're not actually losing any ability to use your electrical USB or anything like that as you're driving. It's also got an on-off switch, so that'll be really nice that we don't necessarily have to start the vehicle to use it. So follow along. We're going to show you how we installed this in the Gladiator, and maybe you can use that to apply it to your specific vehicles. If you're driving a Gladiator, you might love this setup and want to copy ours, and feel free to do that. As we go through it, I'm going to go through each piece and kind of show you how it works. Alright, so I'm not going to bore you with a full install video where I go step by step of what we did and you watch me do that. WeBoost and a lot of other YouTubers have some fantastic install videos out there. I highly recommend you go check those guys out, but we're kind of a unique setup here where we're in a soft top Jeep Gladiator, so there were some concerns about whether or not we could pull this install off successfully, and I want to show you exactly how we did it. We didn't drill any holes or anything like that. So we're going to break this video up into two parts. The first part, I'm going to walk you through the install and why we went through the RV version, and then the second part of this video will be actually going out in the woods and testing it where we know that we don't have any cell phone coverage and just seeing how well it does. I want to reiterate it one more time. If there is no cell phone coverage where you're going, this isn't going to do you any favors. But it will take trace signal out of the air that your phone wouldn't ordinarily be able to recognize. It'll amplify it up to 50 dBs or decibels, and then it will give you some cell phone service for your phone to utilize. You need at least a little bit. It's not going to generate its own. Alright, so without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing that we should talk about is this bracket. So this bracket is made by Rhino Rack, not the same as Go Rhino. Often confused, very different companies. This bracket was originally designed to mount directly to their Rhino Rack systems, and they're very similar to the Go Rhino setup, but it's a little bit different. They still have the channels and all that stuff, but down at the base here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a myriad of ways to be able to mount this to any rack. And it just so happens that this thing fits perfectly on the Go Rhino rack system. So if you're operating the Go Rhino bed rack system, this is going to fit perfect with the stock hardware. What I really like about it is the fact that we can fold this down when we're not using it. So I'll link it down in the description below, but what I really like about this antenna mount is that we're able to put it in multiple different positions. It's kind of hard to see, but on the back side, there are a bunch of holes drilled into the back of it, so you can really orient this antenna any direction that you want. And there's several different degrees of stops. But so if we're not using it, we tend to fold ours down like this, and there's a thumb screw that goes on the back side that will keep the antenna folded down and nice and secure. I recommend using that when you have the antenna folded in any position, but when we're running it, we're able to just pull this, put the antenna in the vertical position, and leave it. This mount, originally I was a little upset, I'll be honest with you guys, that it cost me $100. After looking at it and installing it and seeing how easy it is to use and how robust it is, I think it's money well spent. I think that this is the way to mount these antennas, to be honest with you. It's not going to go anywhere. I've heard horror stories of the flimsier antenna mounts bending under the weight and the wind resistance and just bouncing it off trees and stuff like that. But I don't think that's going to go anywhere. We did opt to use the heavyweight spring that came with the WeBoost kit, and then we used all of the extensions that came with the kit as well, and have the antenna mounted up there just like that. We did have to shift our tent over just a little bit, so if you're running a similar setup, just understand that you're gonna have to offset your tent about 2 inches. That's the other thing I want to mention is the WeBoost itself comes with an antenna mounting bracket. We opted not to use it, but it's got a couple U-bolts in a way to fasten this to round tube or square tube, but it does come with one. Alright, so we have fixed the cable down the back side of the rack with these little plastic attachment pieces that come with the WeBoost itself. It's got double-sided tape on one side. It's got 4 holes on all 4 corners, so you can orient this any direction you want. Then you just run the zip tie across it, and the cable sits in there. You can close the zip tie up. So we opted to run it down the back side, forward to the cab, and then down the side of the rack and into the cab through the soft top, and we'll get a closer shot of that. But I'll show you that we didn't go through the firewall, and we didn't drill any holes. We just found a seam in the soft top, and if you're running a soft top, this might be a good option for you into the cab that way. So let's go take a closer look. All right, so for the Gladiator, the soft top, we have a spot here that we decided to just kind of come in through this channel, and that gave us access to inside the cab. And then when you put this back and seal it down nice and tight like that, this becomes waterproof. And it rained the other night. We didn't have any issues with any water intrusion. I didn't notice any extra wind noise or anything like that. It's kind of sealed off the bottom, and if you look in there, you can kind of see how it works, but there's a lip there that kind of seals that off. So that allows us access into the cab without any drilling or running this down the frame rails. And it stays pretty well hidden. I'm pretty happy with that. Just make sure that when you go to stick these on your metal bed rack, if that's the direction you're going with this, that you clean those sticky spots off with some rubbing alcohol first, so they'll adhere really nicely. All right, so along this lip of this channel, we have the cable running down. As you can see, we decided to put the amplifier portion of the WeBoost behind the back seat. There's a little cubby down here with a rubber sticky mat, and this thing doesn't really even move at all, so it's really nice. And we're able to get the antenna cable down here with tons of excess. You have feet for days. Like I said, this is a setup for the RV version, so they give you plenty of cable, not only for the exterior antenna, but the interior antenna as well. I do say to try to space out your exterior antenna and your interior antenna as much as possible, about 8 to 10 feet. So you don't get feedback on the exterior antenna from the interior antenna, which will cut down on just how effective the WeBoost system is. We got our antenna cables and our power cables routed here. All right, from there, moving forward towards the front of the Jeep, we decided to run our interior antenna and our power cables here under the back seat and kind of under the little cubby hole here to under the mat, and they run forward. You have to excuse the messy carpet, but we decided to run it under the carpet and then up under the plastic to the center console, and then we'll move forward here in a second. All right, so let's talk power cables real quick. The WeBoost kit itself comes with the AC style home power connector style power cord, and it's a little bit short. So we opted for the cigarette lighter DC to DC power cord. And what I really like about this is it has a power switch here on and off, so you don't have to run it at all times, and it's got a USB on the outside, so you're not losing that as a power port for any of your electronics or accessories. So we tend to keep it unplugged and out of the way just because we don't need to run it all the time. Here in Jacksonville, we got pretty good cell coverage. But that is the DC to DC connector we decided to use. And that one is quite a bit longer. I don't have an exact foot measurement, but I'll get you one and I'll link it in the description below. But it is quite a bit longer, and it allows you to span a further distance within the vehicle. So here's where we start getting into the differences between the RV and the XTR or the fleet version of this. This antenna was originally designed as like an indoor antenna, so it should give you a wider spread, and they're saying about 35 feet versus the smaller rectangular antenna that you can still get for about $24 if you want to go that route. Bigger antenna is supposed to give you about 35 feet. The smaller antenna that you see on the other kits are supposed to give you about 12 to 18 inches. So in theory, this is going to reach up into the tent if we want to use it that way, or possibly even out by the campfire. All right, so the reason why we think it might work and might penetrate outside of the vehicle a little better is because we're running a soft top as opposed to a hard top vehicle. So we might have a better chance of getting it out by the campfire, but it's not our primary use for it, and it's not really what our concern is with it. But it should give us a wider spread within the vehicle where the backseat passengers could use it as well and take advantage of it. So that antenna itself lives in our center console, and through the initial testing here in the driveway, we haven't seen where there's any signal degradation living there. So I think that's where it's going to live. It's out of sight, it's tucked away, it's a little bit extra away from the elements, so I think that's going to work out really nice for us. So we already kind of touched on it, but we decided to go a different direction with the WeBoost. We decided to go the RV version to try to give you that wider spread of signal. Typically, you got to be sitting right next to that little antenna, and you got to be in the vehicle to use it. So we're kind of hoping that if we're up in the tent, we have the ability to make those calls, and if we're out by the campfire, we want to double check the weather, we can do that without being huddled up inside the vehicle. And we're not doing this to be able to search social media while we're out in the woods. It's more of a emergency backup for us, and so we like to have that wider spread, and I think that's going to work out really well for us. And I would challenge you guys to go that route too. I think it's a good solution, and I think it's going to provide a lot of value here. Like I said, kind of expensive for all the accessories that we went with, but it's going to work out really good, I think. And now let's head out into the woods and give this thing a test and let you guys know what we think of it. Hey guys, so we talked about the installation, how we ran the WeBoost through the Jeep Gladiator. So now we're out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and lo and behold, we actually have no cell phone coverage. So we're going to go ahead and fire up the WeBoost here in a minute and see what kind of impact it makes. But why don't you come take a look at my screen here, and you'll see that we actually have no cell phone coverage. I'm not airplane mode. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes in any way. So excuse my dirty fingers, but we've been expeditioning. It's a term I'm coining right now. So we have no internet, no network. We can do emergency calls only, and our airplane mode is off. This is on Google Fi. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the WeBoost. Give it a second for the amplifier to detect the signal, amplify it up to 50 dBs, push it to the transmitter. It's going to take a minute. So one of the tricks that I've seen that have worked really well for us is go into airplane mode, turn on airplane mode, because your phone is no longer searching for a signal sometimes. When it realizes it doesn't have any, it'll just kind of give up. So put in airplane mode for a second. All right, see, we just got some service there. So all right, so we're gonna go ahead and run a speed test here and see what kind of speeds we're getting now. All right, so we got 2.57 megabytes download and 0.06 megabytes upload. All right, y'all, I hope this provided some value and helped you make your decision of whether or not a WeBoost was gonna be a good fit for you. Like I said, we're not affiliated with the company in any way. We dropped our own coin on it to test it out and see if it fit our needs. And so far, on this adventure, it has fit our needs perfectly. We've been able to maintain cell contact. Through the Osceola Forest, we've had hit or miss cell phone contact, but with the utilization of the WeBoost, we've never had an issue getting our cell phones to connect to a network. Again, if this provided you some value, I'd really love it if you would like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. There's 4 billion people on YouTube. You hear me say it all the time. I want to make sure these videos get to y'all, the people who like to watch these videos, and just provide you some value.